We just got done with our monthly birthday dinner. And what that is instead of doing individual birthdays every time they land, we just have one big birthday party monthly. And this is some of the food that's left over. We have some hot dogs and some brats, some hamburger patties, and then we have all the fixings, lettuce and onions, tomatoes. Uh, we got a lot of leftovers, and I'm just kind of looking at this and seeing what we can freeze dry. Well, hot dogs don't freeze dry well. I've done brats, but they kind of have to be rendered and mixed with other foods. Hamburgers freeze dry pretty good, but I'm going to hang on to these for lunch. Tomatoes and onions freeze dry well. Lettuce does not, pickles do, relish, sauerkraut, done all that, mustard, ketchup, not a problem. Now this is a bunch of different Jell-Os, and it was actually layered. It looked pretty cool when it was layered, because like we had pineapple Jell-O with pineapple pieces. We have peach Jell-O with peach Jell-O with peach pieces in it. Well, that's a tongue twister. And we had strawberry Jell-O with strawberries in it, raspberry Jell-O with raspberries in it, and banana Jell-O with bananas in it. So I'm going to freeze dry this. Now, this is going to be really interesting because the number one ingredient in this Jell-O is sugar. So it's going to be really interesting, because I know that, sugar-free Jell-O will freeze dry pretty good. But what do you do with Jell-O that has all the sugar? And then the second question is, can we reconstitute it and then make it set up again? So that's going to be the trick with this dish. So here we go. This was a 7-layer Jell-O. Well, it wasn't a salad, and it wasn't a trifle, but it was 7 layers. Like a grape Jell-O had grapes, strawberries had strawberries, banana had bananas, and raspberry had raspberries. And I basically dumped it in and freeze dry it. It kind of has a taste like Skittles, but also has a lot of fruit. So, I mean, you could eat this as a snack. I mean, here's like banana Jell-O with bananas in it. It tastes great. You can eat it like a snack, but I had this idea of reconstituting it. Can Jell-O that's freeze dried be turned back into Jell-O? So we're going to take half of this and reconstitute it with the pieces of fruit that are still in it, and then the other half we're going to grind it up into a powder and try reconstituting it that way. So I've taken half of my Jell-O and I powdered half of it, and so I'm going to reconstitute this with hot and cold water and reconstitute this with hot and cold water. I'll have to figure out the measurements, but I believe if I use a cup of this powder with a cup of hot water and then a cup of cold water, it will reconstitute. This is going to be a little bit different, because I got to figure out how much mass is in there. So this powder comes out to be 150 grams, right on the money. So that 150 grams comes out to a cup and a half of Jell-O powder. So we're going to boil some water, and we'll have a cup and a half of boiled water and then a cup and a half of chilled water. We'll add, and we'll go ahead and mix it together, stick it in the fridge, and see if it sets up. I have a cup and a half of boiling water, and to this I'm going to add my cup and a half of Jell-O powder. We're going to go ahead and dissolve the Jell-O powder in the water like you normally would do with all the instructions. And then I have a cup and a half of ice cold water. So we're going to put that in the refrigerator and see what happens. When I did my Jell-O with the powder, I had a cup and a half of Jell-O powder, freeze-dried Jell-O powder, and to that I added a cup and a half of hot water and a cup and a half of chilled water to make my Jell-O. Well, the problem with this is, how do you figure this out? You really can't measure this by volume because it's these big chunks and stuff. So I measured this by weight, and this came up to 80 grams. And so I'm just kind of winging it here, so I'm going to double the weight in water. So I have 160 grams of boiling water, and then once I add this to the boiling water, I will add 160 grams of chilled water, and we'll see how that works out. My 160 grams of water is boiling, so to that I'm adding the 80 grams of the chunky Jell-O with the fruit still freeze-dried within. This is one heck of a way to reconstitute Jell-O. See, look at this. See, there's a grape, and there's a pineapple, and here's a strawberry. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so I have the fruit is very much intact, and I have 160 grams of ice water to add to that. So I'm going to go ahead and mix that up, and I will add that to the refrigerator. After a few hours in the refrigerator, here's our Jell-O that was done by volume. This was a cup and a half of the Jell-O that I powdered in my food processor with a cup and a half of hot water and a cup and a half of chilled water. And how's that for a jiggle? Okay, so this was 5 different flavors now combined into one, and this turned out really, really good. And then I have the Jell-O that was done chunky style, and that was by weight. So you can see where the liquid Jell-O is down here, and the fruit is all on top. You can see the bananas, the pineapples, the cherries, the raspberries, and it's set up really good also. So we have that one that got reconstituted really well, and we have this one that got reconstituted really well. So we can take some Jell-O out of here, like so. You can see all the raspberry and strawberry seeds inside. And we end up with 2 reconstituted Jell-Os that turned out perfectly. One that where everything is mixed together in a kind of a fruity flavor, and then one that has the different Jell-Os down here with all the bits and pieces of the real fruit at the top. Even though Jell-O is freeze-dried, it can still be reconstituted really well, and that is absolutely delicious. So we have Jell-O with all the fruit, and it tastes really good. So this is a great example of having something that got freeze-dried and bringing it back to life, reconstituting it, and it's just as good as it was earlier. I think it's safe to say that Jell-O can be a snack or a dessert.